I am Anne, the maid at O'Connor Castle, where this powerful aristocratic family resides. The O'Connor family, regarded as a symbol of elegance and authority, is actually terrifying and greedy. They have everything: power, wealth, and a respectable appearance. But behind the grand doors of the castle are cold-blooded individuals who send chills down your spine. Within the castle, Liam and his son live off their loyalty. Liam is a long-serving butler, while his son, Roy, is the family's private driver. They depend on each other to live. Meanwhile, Liam's wife, Clara, and their youngest daughter, Lily, stay back in a poor village outside the city to take care of each other amidst long-standing illnesses. In this magnificent castle, Liam and his son silently endure injustices and humiliation, but the unjust deaths of Liam's family changed everything. One winter day, Charles O'Connor had a meeting with a client in the suburbs. Roy was tasked with driving him. The route passed by the village where Roy's mother and sister lived, so he asked for permission to stop by and visit his family. Charles agreed, but no one knew it would be Roy's grave mistake. Lily, Roy's sister, with snow-white skin and innocent bright eyes, caught Charles's attention. When Roy left to buy gifts for his mother, Charles acted impulsively, putting Lily in an unexpected and dangerous situation. She resisted, but the situation escalated, leading to a tragic end. When Roy returned, he could only see his sister's lifeless body in the car. Her hands were tied by a leather belt, a luxury item only someone as wealthy as Charles could own. Clara, too shocked, suffered a heart attack and passed away immediately afterward. Everything reached its peak. Roy screamed in despair, but before he could collect himself for revenge, Charles appeared. Coldly, he ended Roy's life, then drove off, leaving behind the wronged bodies of Roy's mother and sister. Charles fled, but in his panic, he failed to notice that his belt was still in Lily's hand. Back at the castle, Liam continued to devote himself to the O'Connor family, unaware that his own family had been murdered by their son. A few days later, when Charles returned without Roy and Liam could not contact his son, he began to worry. He made an excuse to buy coal for heating in the suburbs to return home. On the way, his heart was burning with anxiety, not knowing he would witness the most tragic and heartbreaking scene of his life. His wife and 2 children had departed without a word. He knelt before their bodies in sorrow and discovered the leather belt in his daughter's hand, identical to Charles's. Quietly and painfully, he understood everything. Charles was the killer. Right after burying his family, Liam took the belt to the police, but the O'Connor family silenced justice with their wealth and hired assassins to end Liam's life. Liam disappeared, and the case seemed closed, yet his soul seemed to linger on this earth. Exactly 1 year after the tragedy, Charles had a dream. He saw a tall man in a mask, dragging a sword along the ground. The figure gradually approached Charles and ended his life with one strike right in the dream. It seemed like just a dream. But when I found him, Charles was dead, suffocated, with no signs of suicide or murder. Afterward came days of terror, as strange deaths continued to occur. From old Mr. O'Connor to his wife and everyone in the lineage. These deaths had no known cause, only that they died in their sleep. The O'Connor Castle now remains a place of ghosts and tragedy. The surviving servants, like me, fled shortly afterward. The villagers say that at night, they see a man dragging a sword and hear desperate cries from within the castle. They have paid the price. I am Leon, a composer. Not famous, but not terrible either. At least, that's what I used to think until my recent works were torn apart by critics. Cliché, emotionless, lacking depth, they said. Those words stuck with me like scratches that never healed. I needed something new. To escape the pressure of the city, I moved to a small, quiet town where no one knew me. A place where I could start fresh. One rainy afternoon, I wandered into the town's old library. It was a modest place, its dim yellow lights casting long shadows on dusty shelves. The air smelled of damp paper and mildew, but it gave me an odd sense of peace. I browsed the shelves, my fingers brushing over old music books when I saw it. A music score, tucked away in the corner. It had no title, just yellowed pages with faded, handwritten notes. As I opened it, I felt a chill, like a cold breeze brushing past me. The melodies seemed to form in my mind as if whispering, inviting me to play. As I stared at the score, the librarian approached. He was an elderly man, frail, with a face partially hidden behind round glasses. He glanced at the score in my hands, his eyes reflecting unease. "Are you sure you want to try that?" he asked, his voice so soft I had to strain to hear him. "No one has ever finished it. They all gave up. Or..." He stopped, his dry lips pressed together, as if holding back words. "Why?" I asked, irritated by his cryptic tone. "That score? It's more than just music. It holds a piece of the soul of whoever wrote it. Completing it means unleashing something that should remain asleep." I laughed. A cheap superstition? I didn't believe it. I borrowed the score, ignoring the weight in his gaze as I left. Back at my small apartment, I began to play the score. At first, the notes felt disjointed, but soon they began to flow, forming a strange, haunting melody. It was unlike anything I had ever heard, eerie and sorrowful, like the sigh of someone caught between life and death. That night, I dreamed. In the dream, I was sitting in an empty concert hall, dimly lit. On the stage, a shadowy figure was playing the score. As the notes echoed, the scene shifted. I saw a car skidding off the road, flipping over in the pouring rain. The sound of shattering metal and distant screams filled my ears. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart racing. I told myself it was just a dream. The next morning, as I read the news, I nearly dropped my coffee cup. On the front page was a picture of a car overturned at the edge of a cliff. The car from my dream. The accident had happened the night before, while I was dreaming about it. I started to doubt myself, but my curiosity outweighed my fear. I played more of the score, completing another section, and the dreams returned. I saw a man standing at the edge of a cliff, screaming and throwing something into the raging river below. I saw a dark room where a slow, deliberate knocking echoed, like the ticking of a clock. Then, the events from my dreams began happening in real life. My neighbor, who had argued with me about the noise of my piano, was found dead near a cliff. Suicide, they said. But I knew better. I had seen it in my dream. Terrified, I hid the score and tried to stop playing the piano. But the haunting melody wouldn't leave me. It echoed in my mind day and night, as if my piano were playing on its own. I started losing sleep, unable to distinguish reality from dreams. I realized I was no longer in control, but I didn't know how to break free. In desperation, I decided to finish the score, hoping it would end everything. I was wrong. When I struck the final note, a deafening silence filled the room. Then I heard it, knocking. Slow, deliberate. I got up and opened the door, but no one was there. When I turned back, I saw my reflection, or rather a version of myself. Old, gaunt, with empty, hollow eyes. It stared back at me from the mirror at the end of the hallway. Since that night, I have stopped playing music. My piano sits untouched, gathering dust. Yet every night, I still hear it. The melody from the score, playing itself in the dark. If you're reading this, I have only one piece of advice. Never try to understand things that don't belong to you. Some sounds, like this score, are meant to be forgotten forever.